You're on the brink of bankruptcy. You could destroy your life and then wake up and be worth $178 million.
Welcome back to the Modern Craftsman podcast. Today, Nick and I are going to be breaking down a list of principles that were written by Jeff Bezos back in 1997. Even if you're not a Jeff Bezos fan, stick around. I think that this list is very relevant, very interesting. And it was all created long before Amazon became what it is today. So these 10 rules were intended for building a business, but as we read through them, you're going to realize they hit just as hard for builders in our industry and in life. So we're talking about everything from getting comfortable to obsessing over the people you serve to holding the highest standards even when it's not easy. We'll share how these principles have shaped our own careers, where we've stumbled, and how they can transform the way you approach your craft and your life. So sit back, crank the volume, and start inventorying your business and your life to ensure that you are doing what it takes to create a sustainable model. This podcast is brought to you by Andersen. Are you looking to elevate your building skills and stay ahead in the industry? Look no further than the Pro Views blog from Andersen Windows and Doors. This blog is a treasure trove for professionals in the building space, and it often features articles and videos created by industry pros. Whether you're searching for detailed technical documents or handy tips and tricks, Andersen's blog has got you covered. It's designed to help you become better at your craft with insights from industry experts and practical advice you can apply to the job. If you're serious about honing your skills, head over there and check it out. Trust us, you don't want to miss out on this valuable resource. For more information, head over to andersenwindows.com/moderncraftsman. Really great idea. I think that we are all looking to learn something, take away more, learn from other people, whether it's in your market, it's outside of the market. So definitely check this out on the Andersen Windows page.
This podcast is also brought to you by Buildertrend. Have you ever had a change order fall through the cracks? Next thing you know, you're blowing the budget, homeowner's mad, your profit margin is toast. Happens way too often. Buildertrend keeps your change orders, budgets, and actual costs in one place so nothing gets missed and every dollar is accounted for. So if you want to stay profitable, keep your clients in the loop, this system is for you. Book a personalized demo right now at buildertrend.com/MC demo. Don't wait, because your margins depend on it.
This podcast is brought to you by Harnish. Workwear hasn't kept up with the times until now. Harnish Workwear is bringing high-performance design and innovation to the job site with gear that's built to move, breathe, and last. No bulk, no gimmicks, just sharp, functional apparel made for top-tier performers who expect excellence and have a devotion to mastering their craft. I've been wearing their hoodies, pants, and tees, and every detail feels intentional. Smart pocket placement, stretch where it matters, and fabric that performs in any weather. Check out Harnish Workwear at harnishworkwear.com and be a part of the limitless growth and elevated purpose. And I am getting new company t-shirts made, just some fun ones, a little bit of a rebrand logo, really not too much with my current logo, but I just wanted some fun shirts. I need new shirts, and Alex over there helped me redesign and get some sweet shirts made, so keep an eye out. I'll let you guys know when I get them. I think they're going to be pretty sweet.
Are you doing the muscle tanks?
Yeah, definitely. Cutoffs.
Nice. And guys, lastly, before we get into this episode, check us out on YouTube. We have been putting all the podcasts on YouTube. You can watch us, or you don't have to watch us, but it's also a great way to communicate with us specifically about the episode. We find that obviously you listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of these other platforms. You can't engage on the actual conversation that we're having. YouTube's a great opportunity to do that. So head over at Modern Craftsman, dig into all of what we got going on, and give you a little bit more of an insight. And of course, make sure you're attached to our newsletter, moderncraftsman.co on our website. Sign up for the newsletter. We're sending out weekly emails with some goodies. So that's only for the people on the newsletter. We're not sharing that on social or anywhere else.
Yeah, if you have questions on the YouTube, fire away. Nick and I will respond to them. It may take a little bit because we're having somebody send those questions over to us so we don't forget to respond. But if you have questions, do not hesitate to ask there and we'll get you an answer in a little bit of time. So So a little bit of backstory with this. I don't know. I was perusing social media and I came across this list that somebody had posted that Jeff Bezos had created back in 1997. And it was 10 principles for business. And I read through it. Typically, I don't look at this stuff or put too much weight in this stuff, but I looked at it and I immediately screenshot it and sent it to Nick. And then Nick responded to something that Doug said like an hour later by screenshotting or sending that screenshot to Doug. And I was like, damn, that looks familiar. So the list, just like everything on it is relevant. Everything on it is super powerful. It's super simple. And I said to him, we should really devote a podcast to this list because if everyone focused their business or their efforts on these simple principles, I think that we'd all have better, more successful businesses. We'll dig into each principle. But for me, the most fascinating part was that this was written 1997. Crazy to say it is almost 30 years ago. And it's still pertinent. It's still relevant, which to me just blows my mind.
Yeah, when you sent it, I've seen it before, and but just never really acted on it. But it's funny, like you saw it because you were copied on the thread with Doug, but I'm pretty sure I sent that to a dozen people.
Oh.
And it was like, you know, a handful of, like, just someone was dealing with something. I'm like, here, read through this, and you'll be able to figure it out. And that's what it is. It's you know, we make these decisions that we think we're you know, they're unique decisions, but you know, it all boils down kind of to the same thing over and over, you know, and a lot of it just has to do with what we talk about on the podcast.
Yeah, and I think in business, when you're in the day-to-day, we can lose sight of big picture and what's really critical for success. And to me, this list just reaffirms why we are so adamant about what we do and why we do it. So let's just dive into the list. So number one, it's always day one, never get comfortable. Complacency to me is going to kill craftsmanship. It's going to kill your business. You should always stay ahead of the curve. And I think for me, some of my best work has been done when it was early on in my career and I didn't have the self-confidence and I was so diligent and so hyper-focused. I was so afraid of screwing up that I did my homework and I set myself up for success. And I think that the further I progressed in business and you lose sight of that fear, you lose sight of the urgency, having the feeling of something being day one, and you become complacent and you fall back on your heels. And I think that waking up every day and not having that safety net and not truly feeling as though, like, hey, we have this all figured out, to me, that's super powerful.
Yeah, I ended up looking up the extended version, and there was like a bunch of versions of this, but I found one that kind of expanded on that. But it's like that day one mentality means maintaining the sense of urgency and curiosity and willingness to experiment. And I feel like that is something. It drives me to get shit done. Like that's when I'm painted into a corner and I need to get out of it. I go right back to, all right, what is that day one mentality of like, I need to be curious. I need to work through this. I need to act as though like this is the first time figuring it out because I'm in this position and I need to get out of it.
Has there been a time that you feel you've coasted or you've become complacent?
Oh, yeah.
And you
100%.
just got blindsided by it?
100%. And I think, you know, even recently, where it's like there will be days I come into the office and I know I have a shit ton of stuff to do, but what happens is that I don't know what to focus on. We talked about that before, but I get confused or not confused. I get overwhelmed with what do I need to focus on? What is my priority right now? And I think the lack of taking the time and setting the priorities is what has killed my growth the most. And when that happens, it's like I slip into complacency. I mean, I would say I'd have to look back, but it probably was 2 years ago where I kind of took my foot off the gas with marketing and sales because we had a bunch of stuff going on, and only for that to bite me in the ass 12 months later.
Yeah.
And that's I feel like it's cliche to say, but it's that always be selling mentality, and but it's real. And if you want to build a business that you want to scale and grow and continue to be successful, you have to always be like selling, but it can go back to that day one mentality. It's like you always have to be curious, right? You have to have this urgency, even when things are good and feel successful. You still need to work with urgency. And for me, I always work better off a list. Like if I can jot down a list of things I need to do, if that's sitting next to me, I find it to be really helpful, and I get more done. So that's something that I've kind of always dipped in and out of. And now I actually created a prompt in ChatGPT where it's like basically my daily accountability check. And every day I just highlight, here are the things I need to get done today. And throughout the day, it just, I go in and I make sure I'm checking in to make sure that stuff gets done. And at the end of the day, it's essentially prompting saying, what did you get this done? If not, why? All right, do we need to push this off to the next day? But having that constant accountability, I mean, I started that 2 weeks ago. The first week I did it, it was my most productive week in a very, very long time. Like I think Friday, I was like, holy crap. Like I got everything I needed done because something was holding me accountable to it.
And I think you said it in the extended version, the curiosity aspect to me is huge. And I think that really is the driver for a lot of what I do. And I think that once I get to a point where I'm not curious about something, where I don't have that sense of wonder, I'm somewhat checked out. And to me, that's the essence of life. Understanding that you still need to know more. That you still are curious. You still want to learn more. You want to be engaged. And to me, that's huge with regard to this list and with regard to what we're saying, because I feel that once the curiosity is gone, you're checked out. Like it's time to move on. And if you lose that curiosity with your business, if you lose that curiosity with what you're doing in life, that it's time to find something else that drives that curiosity for you. So to me, that's the one thing that really sticks out a lot in the first item here. So the second item, obsess over customers, not competitors. So obviously, if you're focusing on your competition, chasing what others are doing, comparing yourself, it's going to be a dead end road. It's probably going to lead to underpricing, bad positioning. This can be applied to personal life as well. But for me, as soon as I begin to worry or put too much weight or consideration on other people's businesses, their products, their services, their brandings, their pricing, I begin to lose confidence in my own self and my own approach. When I understand who I am, what I do, who my client is, why they're hiring me, I don't want to say that I don't care or I don't have competition, but I create this business model that's more so focused on my needs and my clients' needs, and that just strengthens everything that I'm doing. It strengthens my brand. It strengthens my confidence within myself. I was thinking about this the other day, literally when I was mowing the lawn, and how so much of pricing objection and how that hinders your confidence. And if you are confident in what you're doing and how you're pricing jobs and how you're going through jobs, you almost just don't care. You don't care that it's more money. You don't care that somebody thinks you're expensive, and it's because you're confident in the value that you're providing. And I think that focusing on myself and what I'm doing helps establish and create that confidence for my business, which is it's really important to me, and that winds up creating a lot. I'm way more successful when I have that type of confidence.
We talk about it internally here we're constantly considering, what does the competition have over us? What are they doing that we're not? What are they doing that we should? And I mean, this is spot on where, Bezos kind of goes on to talk about how the customer is the center of everything, and you should be striving to understand their needs and their expectations. And that's through actively seeking feedback, iterating based on that input from the customer and prioritizing their long-term satisfaction. And I think when you do that, you are reverse engineering the like what your competition is doing better than you. And ideally you will continue to build a better, hopefully better than them. And I think naturally we look at our competitors as they have figured something out that we haven't. Let's pay attention to what they're doing so we can do it. Where it's like, yeah, but if you keep going far enough back, all the person that's in the number one spot is doing is listening to their customer and understanding what they need and doing it.
This can be considered from an athletic perspective. If you're preparing yourself for an actual competition, I believe that it just creates a very one-sided model. To me, I would rather play to my strengths. I think that that's going to create a model, an approach, if it's athletically a game plan that is very robust, it's very dynamic. I think when you begin to focus on what one person's doing or what your competition's doing, you're not focused on building this robust, sustainable business, this robust, sustainable game plan. You're just focusing on beating one person, and that's not a viable path forward. So to me, this goes in line with play to your strong suit, play to what you do well, work on creating a really dynamic business and focus less on what this person's doing or that one thing that this person's doing that you should be doing better.
At the end of the day, like, you're servicing your customer. Like, that's that is who is going to give you the real feedback. And I think even for me, through the feedback that we get, and I think a lot of people probably do this, is we typically will get feedback and defend it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, well, I know you didn't like the way we did that, but the reason we did it is because XYZ. It's like, dude, they're literally giving you the cheat code. It's like, I didn't like the way you communicated. I wish you communicated this way. It's like, listen to that, because if they're saying it and then the next guy is saying it, it's like, you gotta listen. And trust me, I go against the grain a lot. I do things solely based on what I want to do or what I think makes sense. And, ultimately, every job is an opportunity to learn from. And how do we take that information, learn from it? How do we adapt our process? How do we adapt what we're building for the next client, and focusing on, again, focusing on what's going to make the business successful. And sometimes that's, hey, Nick, like you did all these extra things in the build. I didn't give a shit about it.
Yep.
I'm not saying, I want to be careful, Kit. I'm not saying that you don't do those things. Like, oh, listen, I don't care if you do exterior insulation. Like, that's not important to me. Okay, well, that doesn't mean you don't do it, but you have to understand that you can't, that can't be something that you're pushing onto a client if they truly don't value it. So that either means maybe they're not your client, or maybe you need to remove that from the conversation and say, hey, the wall assembly is the wall assembly. That's just our product. And it's not a discussion point. It's not a, do you want to do exterior installation? But again, like, taking the feedback from your client and using that for everything, the growth. I mean, even from a marketing perspective, I get, I had someone reach out to me recently and I'm like, hey, love the email updates, a little bit too AI. And I was like, let's hop on a call. I want to like really get some feedback on this. And he gave me some great feedback. And it was funny because I realized the email he was talking about was the only one that I had, it was 100% like I prompted, said, hey, write me an email to basically communicate XYZ. And I copy pasted it. Almost never do I do that. I almost always will write the entire email and then have it cleaned up so it's like it makes sense. And every other email passed the sniff test. It was the only one that I like, quote unquote, cheated on. And it was like, yeah, busted. And I was like, was it the M dash? She goes, no, because I love M dashes and I use them constantly. It was just, I could just tell that wasn't you.
Yeah.
I was like, that's fair.
So number 3, be stubborn on vision, flexible on details. I think that this can be interpreted many different ways, and I'd be interested to hear your perspective. For me, I read this and I see this as your vision being the big picture. We have this idea of where we want to go, but I think with what we have going on in life today, that we are getting so lost in the day-to-day. There's so many things grabbing our attention and pulling us in a million different ways, and there's so much small progress and then 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards. I think that we lose sight of the forest through the trees, and we forget that growth takes time. Building a company takes time. Understanding that you should be working towards a greater good and put less focus on the day-to-day minutia, because that's when it can become overwhelming, right? Every week, every day feels as though there's a million things up in the air and you don't get done what you need to. But if you look at the week, if you look at the month, if you look at the year, to me, that's indicative of where you're headed with your business, if you're making the right decisions or if you need to take a new direction. So being stubborn on vision, flexible on details, for me, I interpret that as I want to have this idea of where I want my business to go and what my long-term goals are, but I'm not going to put all my weight on the day-to-day aspects of my life and business where things may not necessarily go according to plan. Because if you're just constantly dealing with those things, you lose sight of where you want to be in a year, 2 years, 5 years. That's how I interpret this one, but I think that other people could probably interpret it differently.
No, I'm with you. I mean, let's relate it to a project, right? Like ultimately a project, from a project schedule perspective, you start construction one day and you're targeting 12 months, and you have it all mapped out how 12 months works. Whatever happens between month 0 and month 11 or month 11 and 29 days, like doesn't matter. Like you've mapped it out, but if it change, it's going to change and it's not going to unfold the way that you originally expected it to. But if the end goal is still hit at 12 months, it doesn't matter. And so for me, it is, I'm constantly, I get trapped in the minutia constantly. It's my own doing. I have a list of things that are very much admin level tasks that I'm going to bang out today, which I shouldn't. I should just pass those on. And because I have bigger stuff on my list that is like, hey, this is big picture. This is next 3 years. This is, this is the future. Like this is the next 5 years of like the financial outlook, all that. And for me, when I read this, it is continuing to think about who we are, what we're doing, and ultimately what the goal is, right? Like whether it's financial, whether it's the type of project, type of client, that continues to be, what I'm stubborn on. Like that's what we're doing. We're not changing it. Like that's what we're doing. But in terms of the details and how we get there, we're marketing to the $3 to $10 million projects. If a $500,000 project comes in and it makes sense to take it, let's do it. That's not our vision, but that might be a small detail that allows us to get to our vision. Or my team comes and says, hey, I don't think, I know that this is what we're trying to do, but I think we should take this step to get there. Or I think we should adapt our process. I'm speaking in terms of like how I feel my team feels about my encouragement with this, but when my team comes to me and says, hey, I think we should do this or use this or change that, I'm a pretty easy yes. If it makes sense, go for it.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I was the one that decided on that. Software changes, my entire team runs on PCs. Like I'm the only one with an Apple. And it was because it made their life easier for the programs that they needed. And fast forward 2 years, and operating on these PCs and using this software, and that I don't even know how to use the software. And that's weird to me because I was always the one that was kind of like the gatekeeper. And to be able to just remove myself and allow my team to operate efficiently, that's great. Like the detail, like you guys focus on the details. I know what we're trying to accomplish here.
Somebody recommended the founders episode with the founder of Nike, and one of the things that he constantly reiterated in the book was that he has this vision for the company, but he wants you to surprise him with how you get there. And I think that when you understand where you want to be, you have to give people the freedom. You have to give yourself the freedom and the autonomy to work towards that without having this regimented structure. And I think that that's really important in order to move forward. So number 4, build for the long term. Short term thinking kills great companies. And I think that this is similar to 3. There are some subtle differences. Similar to number 3, this one's tough for me because life can feel overwhelming, and you tell yourself one day at a time, one decision at a time, just to be able to continue to move forward in life. So it doesn't seem so insurmountable. So it doesn't seem as though it's that difficult just to progress. But when we get stuck in that state of thinking and we are not keeping in mind where we want to be, I think that we're doing ourselves and our business and our employees and our team a disservice. And I see this with a lot of younger companies where you're just looking to survive. So you say yes to a job because you don't have enough work on the books. And all you're doing is prolonging the suffering. You're prolonging the low price jobs that you're getting. You're not selling value. I tell people all the time with consulting, I would rather see you not take that job that you don't feel is going to make you money and focus on where you want to be. Because if you take that job, you're going to lose the money or not make the money now. And also all the referrals, everything that comes from it, is going to be more of the same type of projects. So I'd rather see you step back, embrace the slow period, work on the business model, work on your marketing, work on getting to where you want to be, because you'll take a hit now, but the long-term growth and the trajectory of your business will be so much different. And to me, that's the same as investing money. It's the same as relationships. It's the same as business. If you just constantly feel as though you're trying to survive and keep your head above water, you're never going to crawl out of that, because there's always going to be something that comes up. To me, again, this is similar to number 3, but there's some subtle differences there.
For me, it's the willingness to embrace risk now for future growth, like you said, right? Like investing in general, balancing that with, a sustainable business model, right? Something that you're not going into it where you're taking these uncalculated risks, whether it's slightly calculated or fully thought out. I've said this 100 times, and I was talking to someone last night about the same topic, but it's just easier not to do the thing with anything. The easier decision is just not to do it, and that, I think, is what is the difference between the people that end up being really successful and not, is that they were willing to do the thing that was going to be difficult and hard. It's not that you have to go through this terrible period of just pain and suffering. It's just that you need to have the courage to take that risk early, to understand that if you stick with this and you push through this and you get to the other side, you make progress. And that might be big progress, or that might be little progress, or it might be neutral, or you might lose on it. But what it is, you're still progressing towards what ultimately is the vision.
How do you do that personally? And I'm specifically asking you because when I hear you saying that, your lifestyle and your business is obviously much different than mine. There's a lot of personality reasons for that. I try and control how much exposure I have to the day-to-day suffering, because it makes my long-term thinking, and this is personal life and this is also business. I try and approach my business and my life so that my day-to-day is manageable enough that I can maintain the long-term vision of where I want to be. You've set things up, obviously a lot more risk. Obviously, there's a bit more chaos, whether it's controlled or not. but we constantly have these offline conversations where it is 2 steps forward, 1 step forward, 1 step back. Maybe 1 step forward, 2 steps back, but you continue to do a really good job of maintaining the long-term goal. How do you personally do that while there's days where you take hit after hit after hit?
I don't know.
Do you feel that you've just conditioned yourself to do that? Has it been something that you've possessed your entire life? Is it just, hey, I have is it my back's against the wall and there's nothing else I can do?
Sometimes, but I think other times it's just, I feel, I forget who said it, but there's this quote that it would be unreasonable for me not to be successful if I put this much work into it. It was like, I'm butchering that quote, but I definitely say that, in my head quite a bit, where I'm just like, it would be unreasonable for this not to work out for the amount of effort I'm putting into it. I think the other side of it is I balance with the understanding that if it doesn't and this fails, like, okay, I'm still alive. I still have my experience. Like, it would be surprising to me that it would ever get to that point. I think when my mind gets to that, where it's like, what am I doing? Like, this could unravel and this could be an absolute disaster and a mess. I probably spend a day in that mindset. And then the next day I'm like, you know what? No, like, I'm pushing forward. Like, this is like, I'm making progress. We're like, and I'm going to make it happen. And when my back's against the wall, it's like, I'm double, triple down. From a personal side, Tyler, I don't have a good answer. I think that it is just, I'm not someone that looks to constantly find a way for my day to day to be manageable from an emotional stress level, so that I could focus on the other things. I'm almost the opposite. When I clock in and it's work time, my best and favorite days are where I'm just absolutely grinding through something, whether that's physically or whether it's mentally in the office. It doesn't matter. It's just, that is where I feel as though I'm making the most amount of progress.
The guy who told me to listen to this founder's podcast, Jim Casey, sent it to me on Instagram. And one of the big takeaways listening to the founder of Nike's story is that, for my timeline may be off, but it was around 15 years or so where he was continuing to build this business, and there's so many hurdles that he came across, and it seemed that for 15 years he just struggled. He was on the brink of just failing. Bankruptcy constantly, like month to month, year to year. It never seemed to change until it did.
Right.
And it was literally, not figurative, literally overnight, he went from being on the brink of bankruptcy to waking up and being worth $178 million. And he said that nothing changed. He made his coffee, put on his shoes, went to work, and literally
nothing because he just continued. He just endured it every day. And what felt like the same thing day after day after day was really maybe physically the same thing every day, but you were building this kind of like equity of just like value. Look at social media. You do the same thing every day. You want to build an influence, like you post every day. It's like, yeah, I'm getting followers, but like, what's the big deal? Next thing you know, it's like a brand reaches out and says, hey, we want to do a brand deal with you. We'll give you 6 figures. It's like, what? Where did that come from? Like, this is so much money. It's like, yeah, but you forgot that you've been doing this for 10 years for nothing.
Yeah.
And it's when you relate it to business, that's what I think about, is that there's very difficult times. There's, cash struggle. There's emotional struggle. There's not enough work struggle. There, whatever it is, at some point, all of that work for a decade or years or whatever it is, if you continue to show up every day, it would be unreasonable for it not to pay off. You're building value over time.
It's just interesting too that I think, had Phil Knight focused on the day-to-day instead of maintaining the vision, he probably either would have given up or focused on something that was not critical for success, and the company would have failed. It's just crazy to think. And I don't think that anything that he was doing was even really overly ambitious. I guess for the time, maybe it was slightly radical, but it wasn't insane. He didn't reinvent something that had never been invented. He focused on the marketing of the business and serving the customer, all of these 10 things. But I think that he always kept the big vision in mind. And I think that had he focused on something smaller, and had he focused on just keeping the lights on rather than what this could potentially be, and continuing to hire people and not draw a salary and build his vision, Nike wouldn't be Nike. And at this point now, worth $35 billion, I think that it probably worked out for himself. But I don't think that he was even fairly successful with Nike until he was 35, 40 years old, that he put all of that work in. He had a couple of kids and was still on the verge of bankruptcy for a while, which is really interesting.
Man, I got to start writing these down because I feel like there's so many quotes that I reference, but people that are successful are on the verge of like delusion. They believe in themselves so much to the point of delusion. Whether Phil Knight would have said that in the moment, probably not. But looking back, it's, that is what happens, is that you just believe that you can do this. And it's crazy to think how many outsiders looking in would look at what a lot of these guys are doing and be like, why would you do this? You're making no money. You're on the brink of bankruptcy. Like, you could destroy your life and then wake up and be worth $178 million. I woke up and I kept believing, but why? But what drove you to believe?
I mean, he had everything against him.
Everything.
Things did never seem to be going right, and rather than giving up, just continued to work towards where he wanted to be. Looking at this list at face value, the first time I read through it, I felt that all of these principles were independent of each other, and they were all so valuable. But the more I go through this, the more I expand on these and talk about these, every one relies on the other. It's it's basically one massive principle that has these separate components to it. So number 5 is focus on what won't change: low prices, fast delivery, trust. So this is with regard to Amazon building a business. Again, it's the vision. It's focusing on the long term. It's focusing on things that are not fads, things that will stand the test of time. For me, this has always been really important with my business. Rather than build my business around fads, build my business around trends, find clients that value what I do. For me, it's always been on quality, right? Quality is never going to go out of style. Trends may go out of style. If you market a certain aesthetic, it may go out of style. But if I focus and I market and I build my business based around quality, reliability, trust, value, all of these ethics are never going to go out of style. They're never going to be not marketable. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's been the secret to my success. Rather than, hey, we do these type of jobs, we do this type of work, it's no, we're going to take care of you. It's going to be a white glove service. We're going to focus on the results, the quality, and to me, that's built a really sustainable, viable business model that you can grow and scale as you want. That's the takeaway for me, where it's focus on your values, focus on your mission, your ethics, your ethos, and less on trends or these fickle business ideals. Anything that I've done to make a quick dollar or has made me money pretty quickly typically fizzles out. It's not sustainable. My business is one of those things that long term, if I continue to adapt, I continue to evolve, it continues to make me an honest income. And that's been a huge lesson for me over the years.
When I think about focus on what won't change, fast delivery can be related right back to schedule, right? Like, clients care about schedule, they care about budget, and they care about quality. That stuff's not going to change. What changes, will be things like energy efficiency, client to client, what's their value around that, what the aesthetic looks like, all the wants and desires of the home. But when you boil it down to the simple things, and this can be direct, this should and can be directly related to what you're marketing towards is schedule, cost, and quality, and being able to communicate how you're answering each of those things and what your rating would be for said things. And I'm thinking about, we have a client right now getting financing for a project that we're going to build them, and they put together an appraisal for the house. They went off the specs, and client's like, Nick, I have no idea what I'm looking at. Can you just read through this? No problem. So I'm reading through it, and there's obvious things like square footage is wrong. They have the bedroom count wrong. Like, okay, but I get to this line that says quality of construction.
This was from the bank?
This is a bank appraisal. It rates the quality. I think it's like Q1 through Q6, I think, something like that. Then it has a bunch of comps on it. So I'm familiar with all the comps in this neighborhood, and they're all rated at Q3 quality. So I look up what Q3 means, and it's basically like slightly nicer than what is considered quote unquote builder grade. They rate ours as Q3 for the appraisal. I'm like, F off. I'm like, I know.
How dare you?
I was like, I know the houses you're talking about. Without pointing out things, I can prove that our quality is higher than that. So then I was like, I want to understand this rating scale. And then it's basically Q1 is like ultra luxury, no compromise made. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, the house that we're building for them is going to be somewhere around Q1, Q2, like the two highest scores you can get, somewhere right around there. All that to be said is like communicating what value you're bringing to the areas that don't change, right? Schedule, cost, quality, and being able to communicate what is that quality and what's the difference behind it. That's where I was going. Is the bank looks at our stuff and the other stuff and sees no difference behind it.
Yeah.
How do you communicate the difference? You know, for me, like I definitely get way too much in the weeds and the technical details, and I know that. I've been considering like, how do I peel this back a little bit and speak at a 6th grade level, like just so anyone can understand what the difference between what we build and what someone else has built.
And that's what you have to do. And actually where my head was going when you started saying the bank's looking at this on paper, how can you create a model that the bank were able to look your business up, see some of your builds, and have the wherewithal to adequately and properly rate this? And I think that that's a battle that we all struggle with clients, right? Where clients look you up and they have no idea who you are, what you do. And that's why one of my biggest vetting techniques is asking people how they heard about us. Because if you found me on a Facebook group, if you just searched contractors in Medford, New Jersey, you're probably not going to hire me unless just by chance your needs align with what I do. So it's creating a business model, a marketing program, your mission around all of these things that will never go out of style. They will never be fickle. They will always be marketable. There will always be a ton of value there for clients, depending on the client. But when it comes down to it, if you handle the budgeting correctly, if you handle the quality correctly, if you handle the schedule, and there's a client that's what is most important to them, you're going to continue to have business, sustainable, viable business for a really long time. Even approaching it from the mindset of, hey, how can I better communicate this on a larger scale, whether it be to a bank for an appraisal or it's just to anyone who comes across our marketing. One of the big takeaways from that podcast that I was talking about, where I was thinking, how can we implement this into Modern Craftsman? How can we implement this into my own business with Nike, is that they never talk about their products. They just talk about their athletes. They talk about the people. I sent you the quote on one of their first marketing campaigns, one of their first ad campaigns. 40 years later, it's still fully relevant. Now, had that been a marketing campaign on a pair of shoes, it wouldn't hold up. It's understanding who and how you're marketing and what you're building your business around that will never ever go out of style. There's certain ways that I've done a good job of that, but there's ways that I could do that much better.
Red Bull mastered this. They've never once talked about their product in all of their marketing. And I shouldn't say they've never once talked about, but when you look at their marketing, it's about everything else. You go to their social media, no product is on their social media. It's all the athletes or the partnerships or living an extreme lifestyle. And ultimately, people relate to that or aspire to be that. If you're thinking, about what we do, we build homes, right? And a lot of times most of the content is about the construction of the home, myself included. And a lot of that has to do with us justifying what we do. Yep. Why are we more expensive? What really goes into this? All the details. We're building some insane projects right now, and I always know that they're slightly insane based on the amount of ridiculous comments we get. And I posted something about our mega shingle detail, and it's going viral. Both sides, like, this is amazing. You're an idiot. All I'm doing is talking about how we're doing it, the detail, what it is, what the process is.
It's going to speak to a very specific client rather than capture an entire group of clients.
I call it lifestyle content, and rather than me talking about what it is, had kids playing in front of it. It wouldn't be so much about the mega shingle. It would be the kids playing in the driveway and, oh my God, what is that? What's on that house? That house looks amazing. It fits in so well with the landscape, and allow it to just exist rather than forcing this, into someone's mind.
Yeah, there's so many good takeaways with regard to that, and I think ways that you can build a more sustainable model. I think that we are often focused too much on the small things and the details that it just limits who we're able to capture or capture their attention or gain their following or support. I think that when you talk bigger, when you talk about lifestyle, when you talk about the people who live in that home, the people, what their lifestyle looks like, why they want to live in that home, you can attract far more people.
Doug might not listen to this, but maybe he will. But I made a note that I want to chat about changing some of our content. I'm just like, my brain is spinning right now, and anyone that's listening to this podcast, you should do it as well. But think about that. Think about the content that you put out, and maybe there's this shift in the messaging.
Yeah.
And have it be more about the end result.
So number 6 is use data, but don't ignore intuition. To me, this is no more critically important to people when they start their business. 1, you may not have the data to support it. 2, you may not understand that data. So your intuition is so important to you. And sometimes that's all you have. Mm-hmm. And there has been so many times, more so when I started, where I told myself this job wasn't for me, this decision wasn't for me, I shouldn't be doing this. But I was hungry, I was ambitious, I did it anyway, and I knew going into it that it didn't make sense, but I did it anyway. So especially me, I always talk about the numbers, understanding your numbers, understanding the data, what makes you money. That being said, even if you understand those numbers, if your gut is telling you no, typically that's the right decision. There's never been a time that my gut has told me no that I've regretted it, but there has been many times that my gut has told me no, and I've regretted it where I didn't do it. But there's been many times that my gut has told me no that I did it anyway, and I 100% fully regretted doing it, and I told myself the entire time, you're an idiot, you should have never done that. I get every single job that I said I shouldn't be doing this, but I did it anyway, was a bad experience. Every one. I don't think there was a single one where I was like, I know I shouldn't be doing this job, and it wasn't absolutely terrible.
I'm going to play both sides here, because I think when you go into it feeling that way, it's really hard to shake it, because it's in your mind, like, this probably isn't a good idea, will actively deteriorate the success, the potential success of that project.
Yeah, you're on your heels.
And on the flip side, if you go into it and say, this is a great idea, I think that can actually explode the success of something, because you believe so wholeheartedly in what you're doing that you're not just approaching this with kind of like a steady, approach. You are just like on this hill climb to success. So I think, the intuition is kind of that first gut check, but based on where your intuition lies, it will actively either increase or decrease the likelihood of success.
Yeah, and understanding why you're doing the job or why you're not doing the job is also important here, right? Where if your intuition's telling you, hey, you know what, this job doesn't really make sense, but this person needs help. I can be the one to help them, and you understand that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not always about the numbers. It's not always about the data. There are aspects of your intuition that are going to tell you yes or no, and just understanding that going into it and not having this false sense of it being something else is important. Number 7 is innovate even when it's risky. And this is something I see so many people screw up. And it's the same as, like you said, with marketing, where people are waiting until they slow down to market.
Mm-hmm.
People are waiting until they don't have any food on their plate to take risk. And I think that you should be doing that. It makes it so much easier when you are being successful, when things are going well, when the stock markets, you're making your money to constantly innovate, to constantly try different things. It's so much easier than when the bottom drops out of everything. But you figured that everything's good. Why make a change? But to me, that's the time to take the risk, not when things aren't going right.
You're just constantly shaking something up. You're constantly experimenting with something that will change the course of what you're doing, good or bad. I couldn't have said it better myself. When you said people wait till they need to market is a great example of, of not doing this correctly. You should always be hungry. You should always be, always be selling.
Why do you think most people struggle with innovation? Do you think it's a bandwidth type of thing, or it's just good enough?
The good enough mentality is a difficult one. I think most people think that there is an end goal. Like when they get to the goalpost, like that's it. Like we've done that. Now what do we do? Well, just keep doing that. It's okay, but if we keep doing that, eventually, like, this is gonna get stale. Okay, when it gets stale, we'll innovate, and then we'll try something else. Instead, it's when you're constantly moving the goalpost. This is hard. This weighs on you mentally a lot. Where it's like when you are constantly moving the goalpost, you're just running. You're just constantly running, trying to get further and further and further and further and further. And from a mental perspective, there's a heavy load on you because you don't ever realize that where you are right in this moment is actually way beyond where you were trying to go to begin with. So without those reflection periods, that's where I think the human nature of burnout really settles in. But when you're constantly moving it, you're just like, you are always innovating. You're always trying to be better. You're always trying to improve something. And because you're always moving in a forward direction, you don't run into this situation where someone passes you. Like you might take massive steps back or have huge losses, but the only person that's going to be where you are or ahead of you is the guy that started earlier or just hasn't hit a roadblock like you.
So I was watching a dirt bike race this weekend, and the commentator was mentioning the guy who was in the lead. The gap between him and second place was staying consistent, and he actually made changes in race that created a bigger gap between him and the second place person. And he was so impressed that the leader, who was doing everything right, in my mind, I'm already out front, I'm already winning this race, why not just keep doing what I'm doing? Had enough mental fortitude to say, I need more, or I can still make changes, or I could still be better. And the potential and the maturity and the growth for that was so impressive to him, because it's like most people in that position are, hey, I'm already in first place. What I'm doing is obviously working. Right. Why not just continue this? Even if you're not getting further in front, you're still in the lead. There's risk there though, right? Because now you make changes, you could crash out. It could cost you, but having enough confidence that you can come back from that. And to me, that's so similar to business. We're typically, when we're doing okay, we're not questioning what else can we do? How can we make this better? Because we're doing okay. It's so much easier for the person who's in second place to say, hey, I need to innovate. I need to change my lines. I need to do something different because what I'm doing is not working. It's so hard to do when you are successful because you're thinking, I'm already on top. I'm already
Yeah.
making my money. I'm making my rates, and you don't question what you're doing. And I think that that's just a really good analogy for me and spoke to me with regard to what we're talking about, where it's like there is a lot of risk, but there's also risk not innovating. You're never going to reach your full potential, and it may bite you, but I think that then right?
I love that analogy because you're right. First place, what's working is working. Why change it? But you're banking on the fact that the second place, third place, everyone behind you is operating on the same wavelength, and most guys in second place aren't. They're trying to get to first.
Yeah.
I
And
love
they're
that.
typically charging a lot harder.
Mm-hmm.
So number 8, be frugal. Constraints breed resourcefulness. This to me is huge. It comes down to profitability. It comes down to efficiency. You can make money a few ways as a business. You can do more volume, assuming that the cost of doing that business and putting that work in place doesn't cost you more money. So you can increase your revenue while spending the same amount or spending less. Or at the end of the day, you could just spend less, right? You can reduce your overhead. You can reduce the amount of resources that go into your business so that maybe you're doing the same amount of volume, the same amount of gross revenue, but the input, what's required to create that output of work is less. So that's one way that you can make a lot more money is by being frugal, understanding where you can lower the cost of your business. And this isn't with regard to say, hey, I'm going to go shop my insurance, which is not a bad idea to do, but we get annoyed right when clients do that to us. It's understanding how can I create efficiencies within my business that it costs me less money to generate the amount of work that I'm putting in place now. And I think when you understand that mindset, you may not have to do as much work, right? It's not always about just increasing your sales revenue. You're finding ways to work harder, possibly work less, increase your profit margins. And to me, that's how I've made a living for a long time. I've tried to be as lean as possible. I've focused more on efficiency and systems rather than just increasing my overall revenue and creating higher profit margins. So to me, this one speaks to me. This is right up my alley. I think that as you become more frugal with your business, it opens up the door for so much more opportunities.
I would say that most people would not consider me to be a frugal individual, though I would say that in many ways I am and can be. But what I like about this is, this is constraint breeds resourcefulness. I always say constraints breed creativity. I think from a project perspective, like that's what I oftentimes will challenge my team with, where it's, hey, sure, like that should cost $15,000. How do you do it for 10? The easy answer is you don't. It's like, okay, let's find a way to.
Yeah.
Because if you only have $10,000, I know we can pull this off in some version of what we're trying to do. But it's the same thing, for me, there is things I am frugal on. I think we have a tremendous amount of output for a small team, and even on the marketing side, I think we do a tremendous amount of marketing, especially from social and content, but we're pretty frugal with that. We are very resourceful with the content that we have and reusing it and making sure it gets populated in ways that isn't just constantly spending money.
Frugal doesn't necessarily have to be with regard to
money.
I mean, yeah, it is with regard to money, but no, it doesn't have to. And what comes to mind is, and I guess this is more in line with the constraints breed resourcefulness, but the issue you had with painting contractors. And it's like, well, maybe we pay the painting contractor the same amount, but give them the entire house. So we're not spending more money, and we can get them to do the scope of work, and possibly it affects your budget in some way, shape, or form. But it really, it's more resourcefulness than anything else. And I think a lot of what we do, it comes down to that. And when you have limitations with schedule, when you have limitations with budget, when you have limitations with access to subpool or manpower, when you're put in that corner you do become resourceful, you do become crafty, and typically it winds up being a little bit of sweat equity. But it's the same thing as before. When things are going well, you don't question that. You don't say, hey, could I have a lower truck payment?
Mhm.
Could we have a system where there's less inefficiencies with downtime between projects, where if you approach your business from a more frugal mindset, you become more resourceful, you can increase your profit margins, and things don't have to be slow to do that. It's not necessarily just spending less money. You just have to inventory your business and what's working and what's not working, and where you can trim the fat and where you could possibly double up some coverage in some places. But to me, this is something where I think the busier we get, people throw money at things, and it's not always the answer.
And I will say, like, you have been a great sounding board for that, because I am oftentimes like, all right, I'll just hire that or pay for that or have someone do that, thinking that that will be a solution. And more times than not, it's not the solution.
Yeah.
And largely due to just like, it's not just about throwing money at things. It still requires the effort, from our side.
Yeah, and I think that probably the ideal solution would be somewhere in between the two of us, because I think that we're on like polarizing ends of the
Yeah,
spectrum.
that's fair.
I think that somewhere in the middle would probably be more appropriate. But yeah, like just throwing money at something isn't going to fix it if you don't have the time and the bandwidth and the power to manage that. So
Mhm.
it's slowing down to speed up with. And with regard to speeding up, number 9 is move fast. Speed matters in business. I've learned this lesson many times when work was slow early on, when I was competitively bidding jobs, trying to figure out what worked from a marketing perspective. I realized that the more prompt I was, being able to answer questions, being able to meet with clients, getting them pricing, responding to emails, the more punctual I was, more people hired me, the better or more successful my business was. And I
Mhm.
now balance that with not putting too much on my plate. And there's other ways that I make money. But any time where I've said, you know what, I'm going to answer every email before end of day, if I go to somebody's house and they want pricing, I'm going to get them within the week. It's always been extremely advantageous to my business. And I think that that has to do with every aspect of our business, whether it's the project, whether it's the clients, whether it's invoicing. Every single decision matters. Making the decision, rolling with it, moving forward. It's not necessarily about whether it's right or wrong, but the sooner you make a decision and you start moving ahead, even if it's the wrong one, it's going to get you towards where you need to be faster. Maybe by learning that it wasn't the right decision,
Right.
but still, if you just sit there and you dwell on it, nothing's getting done.
Anyone that's answered an inquiry, within, a few hours or a day, has all gotten the email. Thank you so much for getting back to me so quickly. It's like, perfect. Now keep that up, because just because you like, and I think that's where a lot of people lose it, is they respond immediately. Oh, this is a good job. Respond, get the conversation going. You're making momentum, and then all of a sudden you drop. It's like, what happened? Like, you were at
Yep.
3%. You're moving on to 4. Now you're back down to 2. It's like, if you keep going, you're gonna know if you're gonna get to 100% faster. Like you said, keep the momentum behind speed. I also think speed is just from a decision making perspective. Make the decision, break things, like make the wrong one. I always say that, the saying, the best decision to make is the right one. The second best is the wrong one. And the worst you can do is make no decision.
Mm-hmm.
People are, always push back at me and say, well, listen, if I make the wrong decision, that could be detrimental. It's like, if you're making a detrimental wrong decision, then you probably weren't even in the right position to make that decision anyway.
Yeah.
When the decision is made and it's the wrong one, it should be the wrong decision, but not something that is so detrimental. It's like,
Yeah, you
that
still need to educate yourself. You
right,
can't
like
just be like, oh, here, pick a hand.
right,
You know?
wrong. No, but the chances of that decision being detrimental is such a low percentage. And when it's wrong, you can 50% of the time you can probably live with it, and the other 50% just redo it.
Sure.
And if it is detrimental, it's like, okay, well, now like that's a great learning moment. And where was the failure, so you can now improve the process. But the guys and girls that just sit there and don't make decisions, it's like this is the worst thing that you can do. So speed is, speed,
especially in our world, man. Like, time is money.
Yeah.
So John Marley's dad, he repairs cranes, like construction cranes, and he travels the world repairing cranes on site. And it's basically whatever your fee is, it doesn't matter, because if we don't get the crane operating, literally nobody can work.
Yeah.
And it just comes down to speed, right? And if you can stage that job and you can get there and you can get them up and operational again, you can call your price at that point, right? Because it's just about getting things done. And it's not, speed is not willy-nilly, right? You aren't just doing it for the sake of doing it. It has to be speed with intention. It has to be moving in the right direction. It's not moving a mile a minute where you're just making the wrong decisions. It has to be an educated decision done with speed. It can't be done hastily. So make sure that you distinguish and differentiate between the two. It's not just like, yeah, I'm gonna make a decision and roll with it so I can get on the right track. Like, it's speed in regard to, I'm not going to wait till tomorrow to start educating myself to get this answer. I'm going to start today to get an answer, an educated answer today. It's not just like, I'm just going to answer it because I'm going to get moving in the right direction, right? It's having an educated answer and continuing to move forward as quickly as possible.
There's this photo online of, it's like a big ship, and there's a story under it, and it basically says, giant ship's engine broke down and no one could repair it, so they hired a mechanical engineer with 40 years of experience. He inspected the engine very carefully, top to bottom, and after seeing everything, the engineer unloaded the bag, pulled out a small hammer, he knocked on something gently, and the engine came to life. And the engine was now fixed. And they got a bill for $20,000. And the owner said, "You did almost nothing. Can you give us a detailed breakdown of that bill?" And he wrote, "Sure. Tap with hammer, $2. Knowing where to knock and how much to knock, $19,000, $998."
So good.
And I'm like, every time I see it, I'm like, it's true. Like, we think that it's just the time that we put into it. But it's like, that ship was stand still.
Yep.
I hope that's a true story.
So number 10, the last one, adopt high standards, because good enough isn't, excuse me. And obviously, if anyone can relate to this, I think that it's probably you or I. Not saying that we're the only people here, but we can definitely attest and we can definitely speak to this.
Tyler, I think the rest of our day, that day you sent me this list, every time we were like bouncing ideas off each other, we're like, high standards.
It's funny though, because what comes to mind is Spencer Lewis years ago. He was building some built-ins, and I'm pretty sure he was just like gluing a face frame on, tacking it with some nails. And he was like, good enough is good enough. And it is, with regard to his market and what he's getting paid. It didn't make sense. Like, the high standards didn't make sense. How I was building stuff wouldn't make sense for him. So it's understanding your market. You can't just adopt high standards and not get paid for those high standards. That's a mistake that I made for a really long time. Not necessarily because my clients weren't willing to pay for them. There's a lot of issues with that, with regard to how I was selling the job, how I was getting paid up front for the job. But at the end of the day, I wasn't capturing the time and billing my clients for that time. But if you're in a production mentality, you can't build stuff the way that I build stuff. And Spencer typically is in a production mentality. And he's saying, hey, you know what? For my clients, good enough is good enough. And it is. He would be foolish to overbuild that. So you can't just adopt high standards without understanding what goes into that and being compensated for that and capturing those costs. But for me and for what I do with business, high standards, part of it, it's part of delivering the quality. I just had to do a better job of understanding how to capture those hours and how to accurately get paid for my time. But to me, high standards are a huge differentiator. It's a differentiator with subs that I bring onto my job, with my clients, with the quality of work that we're putting in place. Typically, I don't want to be doing something that I feel I could have done better. It's frustrating to me. It doesn't create a lot of peace internally. So whatever I'm doing, whether it's watering my lawn, whether it's driving, work, riding my dirt bike, whatever it is, I want to be doing to the best of my ability at that point, and I want to continue to get better. So my high standards have definitely gotten me to a certain place in my life. They've also created a lot of anxiety and a lot of frustration, but given the choice between having high standards and not having high standards, I'm going to roll with what I have all day long.
For me, it just comes down to constantly communicating what our standards are and getting people to understand and buy into it. The biggest failures in our business have been directly related to the people that just don't understand why we do the things that we do regarding standards. And for me, and for anyone that knows me, knows how important brand and image is. And that is something that I have certainly struggled with a lot of people on our team. Just like, what does it matter? It doesn't need to look like that. It doesn't need to be formatted. It doesn't, like, the wording can be this way, that way. It's no, these are the standards. And this is, ultimately what I've decided. And I need everyone to hold themselves accountable. I also think that self-discipline and personal high standards is what I see as the best employees, and at least in our environment. People that hold themselves accountable, people that are disciplined, people that expect the best out of themselves, and will work to find the ability to get there. Like, that's important. Keep the truck clean, keep your tools organized, keep the job site neat. All of that stuff matters just to our process and ultimately to the standards and to who we are as a business.
What's the saying? It's something along the lines of the way you do one thing is the way you do everything, or the way you do anything is the way you do everything.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. I probably botched that too.
The way, how you do one thing. Wait.
We need like somebody on the background to be fact check. You get the point.
Chris Williamson from Modern Wisdom, like he's got the iPad, so maybe he's got it in front of him, but he's so good with quotes. It's how you do one thing.
You get the point, but yeah, I mean, always
how you do one thing is how you do everything. Emphasizes the way someone approaches a task, no matter how small.
Yeah, we're close. Whew. So Doug wanted us to mention also that the podcast is living on YouTube. We have someone new on staff who's handling a lot of that. Nick and I are trying to do our best to respond to as many comments as possible there. The way that I've done that is basically we have a spreadsheet that's created that is pinged to me and Nick when there's comments. So if you give us a little bit of time when we're in the office, we'll respond to those comments. But if you want to check out the podcast on YouTube, we are putting a lot more effort into that and more resources into that these days as well. So definitely check it out there.
Yeah, you can watch the whole show, and like Tyler said, it's a good way to interact with us and ask questions on it. I mean, dude, it's at Modern Craftsman, just YouTube Modern Craftsman. But yeah, we just posted a video, and it looks like it's getting quite the engagement. So we get some comments to get to. Well, with that being said, guys, we appreciate you listening. Hopefully this is a cool format. Tyler, kudos to you for kind of leading some of these recent conversations. We said a couple months ago that we wanted to dig into more about what Tyler and I are about for this industry. We'll continue to have guests on and things like that, but there's so much that we talk about offline, online, and dig into, and we're inspired by things that are in and outside of our industry. And I'm digging this format.
Yeah, I've had so many, I don't know about you, I've had a bunch of people email me, shoot me DMs, send us messages. I know both of us have been included on some, but just the past month or so, of people reaffirming what we're doing, and don't second guess everything. What you're doing is working. What you've been doing is working. We appreciate everything. So I do want to say thank you to everyone for that. You can get in your own head at times. You can question everything sometimes. I think that we probably do that, and we are looking to evolve. We are looking to stay ahead of the curve. So many of these principles and these lists that we've just gone over, we apply to our personal lives, to our professional lives, to the podcast. But we do have to remind ourselves what we're doing, where we've came from, what's helpful to a lot of people. So I appreciate everyone who's taken the time to email us, to send us DMs, to shoot us a text. It's very appreciated, very supportive, and I'm very grateful for it. So thank you.
Talk to you guys next week.